There was a time when the only way the Rhodesian Air Force would have carried Robert Mugabe was bound and handcuffed to the floor. Today, the same white pilots fly for the Zimbabwe Air Force, and the man they carry is now called Prime Minister. In the war that ended last year, this was guerrilla country, the heartland of Mugabe's support. For Mugabe, this place has a personal significance. It was here that he fled in 1975 on his way to lead the war from Mozambique. Greeting him today are many of the people who hid him from the White Army and helped smuggle him across the border. With him too is one of his most trusted wartime followers, Maurice Nyagumbo. The poor farmers of this village have not yet witnessed the sweeping revolution that Mugabe once promised, but their commitment to him is total. Mugabe spoke to them about the shared suffering of the past.
I felt very emotional about it. There I was, getting back to the spot whence I began the journey to Mozambique. I was completing, as it were, a cycle, which started with my going on a campaign to organize a struggle against the regime, and now was ending with my return after a triumph. It was therefore a kind of triumphant march, concluding the war, as it were.
Viva Prime Minister Mugabe! Viva!
The revolutionary leaders from the war are now MPs in a kind of African Westminster. For a year now, the public debates in this chamber have been a symbol of Robert Mugabe's promise that change will be gradual, that reconciliation is his aim. Reconciliation is the outward face of the Mugabe government, and in many ways the degree of coexistence is remarkable. There are many revolutionary leaders who started out as jailbirds before becoming ministers with expensive limousines. But where else in the world would a man who spent 20 years behind bars come back to his old prison and find his old jailers still in charge?
Fine, thanks. Fine. So we ready to go? Yeah.
Maurice Nyagumbo last saw Salisbury Prison just over a year ago, when he was finally released after spending 1/3 of his life inside. Today he is Minister of Mines and is ushered politely through gates that were once firmly closed on him. Leading the way, the Director of Prisons, Alex Hall, who was responsible for guarding thousands of guerrillas in the war. Maurice Nyagumbo was one of the small elite, the dozen or so nationalist leaders who defied the Smith regime and used their time behind bars to build the political party that could make a revolution. In cell blocks like this one, some of the nationalists almost lost hope, as their imprisonment dragged on for years, sometimes decades.
This was my cell. As you are seeing, there are 3 cells at this side. That one was Prime Minister's cell, and this one was Mr. Ngala's cell. The 3 of us, would have this enclosure here as our exercise yard, and that was all for us. Well, mainly we used to play drafts, an indoor game, and what else? Cards, I think.
Did you discuss politics here, Maurice?
Oh yes, of course we did discuss politics. As you may imagine, we used to talk more about politics than anything else. Yes.
And did you think then that you'd ever be let out?
Oh no. To ourselves, it was, of course, we were the starters of the struggle, and we were going to die before we got anything, and that's what that was all about. You see, this is what you used to think about.
The prison routine goes on much as always, except that the convicts are criminals, not freedom fighters. For 12 years, the current Prime Minister of Zimbabwe saw the world through metal bars. Today, Maurice Nyagumbo walks alongside his former jailer, prison officer Albert Stein. In this block, the minister endured solitary confinement in a pitch-black cell. From there, he could hear the screams as guerrillas sentenced to death were taken to be hanged. On these gallows, hundreds of Africans, including many teenagers, were executed for joining or helping the resistance movement. At one time, Maurice himself was told he would be hanged.
There can be reconciliation. Reconciliation means we have got to forget all about the past, and we hope everyone else, you see, including those who used to fight against us, will take the word as it means. That reconciliation means everything. We forget about the past and start afresh to build our new country. But should there be anyone who doesn't believe in what we are doing, then of course that one will find himself at a fault.
In trouble?
Yes. Yes. He'll find himself in trouble.
In the words of a Matabele song, they are still waiting for their share of freedom. For when the vote in last year's election split on tribal lines, Mugabe, the Shona leader, became Prime Minister, and the Matabele, the minority, came nowhere. Today in Bulawayo, there's real apprehension about the future. The funeral of 2 more Bulawayo whites is evidence of the continuing troubles in the region. In the last few weeks, half a dozen whites have been brutally murdered in Matabele land. This service is for Jack and Dorothy Railton, a middle-aged couple who ran a safari park. According to a servant, they were killed by African gunmen believed to be dissidents from Joshua Nkomo's guerrilla army.
This was one of the murders which has taken place recently, for which there appears to be no valid reason, but we pray that this type of violence and killing may soon be brought to an end, and the country will indeed come to peace, and people will be reconciled with one another.
The white community in Bulawayo is still strong, but it too is now worried about the future.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Many whites believe that law and order in Matabele land is in danger of breaking down.
Through our Lord Jesus Christ, to whom be glory for ever and ever. Amen.
Every day, the Magistrates' Court in Bulawayo sees more evidence of a rising tide of lawlessness. The most frequent crime is armed robbery, and every morning the accused, often former guerrillas, turn up in the dock. The magistrate hasn't changed, and nor have his sweeping powers, which still theoretically include the death penalty.
Please, Your Worship, to consider the matters of Colin Cox, Elias Ndlovu, Justin Chuma, Lazarus Matema, and Gibson Yandore. Accused are all jointly charged with 34 counts of robbery, multiple counts of rape, and possession of arms of war in contravention of the law and order.
The dry legal explanation obscures what is still basically a political problem. Gangs of armed young Africans, many of whom fought in the war, who have still not found the promised fruits of independence.
In custody.
You will be remanded until the 15th of April at 9 a.m. for trial on charges of rape and robbery and possessing arms of war. Is that understood?
It's among Nkomo's Zipra guerrillas that discontent is at its most dangerous. The men who rebelled at Ntumbani have been moved to country areas outside Bulawayo. Hostile and suspicious, 1,200 of them are camped next to a farm belonging to Henry Watson. Every day Mr. Watson drives to and fro among them, and the government's claims that they've been disarmed and are waiting to go into the National Army do not reassure him.
We feel it's like living on a time bomb, that something must happen somewhere along the line. They have arms and they just don't display them when they are visible.
They're supposed, of course, to be integrated into the National Army, but they don't seem to show any great enthusiasm for it. I mean, what is in fact the situation?
At the moment, I don't know, except that we were told at one time about 2 weeks ago that they were going to be moved into town away from Bulawayo, and a large number of trucks actually arrived out on our bridge, which is 1 kilometre away from the camp. But then they turned around and went back to Bulawayo. They didn't take the men. And the people in the camp said that they had received no orders. This was the commander, David, said that he had received no actual orders to leave.
But it's very unclear, isn't it, who exactly he takes his orders from, because theoretically he's supposed to take it from the National Army, but in fact they seem to be obeying just their ZIPRA commanders.
This is what it appears to be. You know, we don't know. All he said was that he had not received any orders to move, so he couldn't move. He had to maintain his position.
The Watsons are also trying to maintain their position. Every night, young Gary Watson counts sheep to make sure that none have gone missing. How do you feel about your own future as a white farmer in this country?
I hope that the country will become peaceful and we can remain here and make a go of our farm that we've battled all these years to build up.
Do you believe it will?
Lately I've had my doubts. Up until then there was no doubt. During the war years that was fine. We thought this would come to an end and then everything would be peaceful and whatnot. But now with the murders that are going on in the farming community, it's hard to know whether it's going to be your turn next, that they're going to try and get a few shillings for the sake of your life.
So really that feeling of confidence which you had almost throughout the war is just slightly evaporating?
You're right, yes. There's certainly less of feeling of security now than we had before, even although then it was a more dangerous situation as such. Now it's like waiting to be mugged in the city when you don't know who's going to mug you, where before you knew who your enemies were.
It's in the beautiful countryside around the Gwai River that Prime Minister Robert Mugabe's government is facing its real test in taking charge of Matabele land. Camped around a disused mine are more than 5,000 heavily armed ZIPRA guerrillas, the hardcore of what was once Joshua Nkomo's army. This is their last stronghold. The soldiers don't like journalists, so we filmed them secretly as they turned us away at the gate of the camp. It's these men that Robert Mugabe must disarm if he is to achieve full power. So far, they've rejected all attempts to take away their guns. Even Nkomo says he can't control them. We're flying about as close to the Gwai River mine as you can safely get. The guerrillas dug in down there have told all pilots to stay at least 10 miles away from their positions, and we're flying at about half that distance. Down below are more than 5,000 men, armed with everything from heavy machine guns to Soviet anti-aircraft missiles. It's a natural fortress defying Mugabe's government. I spoke to a white army officer who asked that his identity be concealed. He believes that ZIPRA are prepared to fight.
Right. There is a battalion situated on the forward slopes of this hill feature over here. Right. There is a further battalion on the rearward slope over here. Another battalion occupies the high ground, which I explained to you in this area but did not draw in. The other battalion on the rearward slope of this hill feature, and the other one in this area over here. As you can see, all the vantage points in the area have a troop presence, and I think you can rest assured that any other further outlying hill features that command a bit of a view will have a presence on top of them.
So how do you fancy the chances of the National Army in taking out that lot?
It will be fairly difficult. As Winston Churchill said, it will be long, it will be hard, and there will be much bloodshed, but they will take it out. We have the aircraft, we have artillery to match and better theirs and so on. We could do it, but as I say, it will not be easy.
Do you believe the government is really going to take on this danger, this gamble of trying to destroy the ZIPRA presence at the mine?
Well, I would say that it is almost definitely a very big thorn in the Prime Minister's side, and probably very high on his list of priorities. to take the sword out of the Matabele people's hand, if you like.
So you're really laying the blame pretty fairly and squarely on Prime Minister Robert Mugabe's government?
Yeah, of course. Completely, right on his shoulders. Proportionally, all right, we'll say that he has got the majority, but there are still a hell of a lot of Matabele people in this country. Too many to turn a blind eye to. And if he continues to turn a blind eye, well, I think that turning his back on it is going to end up with a boot up his backside.
I don't know about that. I don't think anybody is prepared to fight, really. The leadership are all prepared that disarmament be completed and be completed fully. What is the purpose of living, as it were, points of power, military power, which belong to the parties, still armed and still posing a threat to the nation? That would negate the very process of our independence, the very process of achieving permanent peace in the country. And I'm sure once they are talked to and the impression is created in them that disarmament is not creating a situation whereby they will be attacked, I think they will be very responsive to the call for disarmament. In any event, we will have to disarm them, whether they like it or not.
Mugabe still depends on the officers of the old White Army. Enough whites remain to strengthen Mugabe's hand for the coming confrontation in Matabele land. At a graduation ceremony for new officers, it was the tribal problem and the need for unity in the army that dominated Mugabe's speech.
Whichever route you followed into the National Army, whether it was via Zanla or via Zipra or via former Rhodesian Army, you have all of you now come to the same destination, whether you like it or not. My government cannot put up with an army situation of divided loyalties, where some people enter the army to serve individuals, groups or party interests, as opposed to the national interest.
Everything now depends on the crash training program to forge a national army out of the two guerrilla groups, Zanla and Zipra. During the fighting in February, two of the new battalions simply fell apart, and the white officers are worried.
You can't just get a handful of guerrillas, merge them all together so that there are approximately 1,000 of them and say, right, we have a battalion. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's the fact that you are endeavouring to merge the two armies, but you haven't provided for the sort of political happiness of half of it. So one side is perfectly happy, the other side is not happy because they're not represented. That's what it all revolves around. So I can tell you that they are certainly substandard. Yeah, most definitely substandard. They lack in discipline, which is the main thing.
What kind of army is it going to be then when there are 60,000 of them?
I would say that your guess is as good as mine. I would say that they have to stabilize the political situation, cater for the Matabele people, and then we can start looking at a national army.
Our informant's worries are widely shared among the officers of the National Army. Even the British officers helping with the training apparently have their doubts. But today, after a year of compromise, Prime Minister Robert Mugabe is determined to tighten his grip on power. The screaming motorcycle escort that takes him everywhere he goes is the symbol of the style of leadership he desires. Just before the independence anniversary, Mugabe showed his hand with a clear call for a one-party state.
But there is politics and politics. There is constructive politics and the politics of negativism. The politics of negativism, as contrasted to constructive criticism, have no place in a young country such as ours.
In spite of real differences of opinion with Nkomo Zapu and with the remains of the White Rhodesia Front, Mugabe believes that only one party should represent Zimbabweans.
And the concept of setting up a party merely to oppose and not to assist a government in being to govern on a national basis is repugnant to me. Not that I'm anti-democratic principles, but rather that I cherish the principle of national unity, that where the people have achieved independence like we have done, and their main concern is really with achieving peace, getting their people to work together nationally, and embarking on programs of development where everybody's effort is required. My view is that it's a luxury to indulge in politics of opposition.
Now, how can one party represent the full interests of a Zimbabwe in which there are two political parties, two peoples, two histories, two traditions?
But that's not our concern. When we fought the war, we weren't fighting it for the various tribes. We weren't fighting it for what you call the two major tribes. We weren't fighting it for the two histories you're referring to. We were fighting it for one people who are now constituted into a nation. And it is this oneness that we would want to see urged and facilitated.
Mugabe himself is a man who now wears his power with confidence, proud of his first year's achievements.
What we have managed to achieve over the few months we have been in government has been quite spectacular. We have moved events from a war situation to a situation of relative peace, a peace that one never thought we could achieve at this stage of our independence. We are determined that there shall be peace, that there shall be national unity, that there shall be reconciliation, and on the basis of those principles, we hope to carry out our programs of development in the interests of our people as a whole.
If there's a question mark about Robert Mugabe, it's about what he means by unity. In a Zimbabwe under his leadership, will there now be any room for dissent?